Hey everyone, it's Michael GoosebumpsFan. Today I have another book review for you. Of course, this is the next to last at this current moment Mummy book from all of Goosebumps, whether it be the classic series, the series 2000, doesn't matter what it is. This is this is Goosebumps HorrorLand, which came before the Most Wanted era of Goosebumps. Like I said, this is the next to last Mummy book that exists from Goosebumps to my knowledge. And the next one's going to be Dummy Meets the Mummy, which I'm really excited for. I really can't wait to read that, and I really can't wait to talk about it here on the channel with you guys, God willing. But this is going to be really cool. I think this book review is a little bit more positive than some of the more recent reviews I've been doing. Even though this book is a little bit less good compared to the last one I did, which was a Series 2000 book called The Mummy Walks. But that one wasn't really focused on mummies, and neither is this one. That's one big thing I keep seeing with these mummy books. They're not always really focused on the mummy aspect, which is fine. I just kind of prefer the mummy thing. I love the first book called The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb. I think it's a fantastic book, one of the best, if not the best, of the mummy books, possibly. But you never know. The next book might change that. I kind of just try to keep that open-minded a little bit. But getting to this book, this one is called Goosebumps HorrorLand, book number 6, Who's Your Mummy by R.L. Stine. This cover sucks. Absolutely sucks. The cover monster, which is the mummy, sucks. The cover itself is very blurry. I don't know why it looks like that on this cover. You might not be able to see it in the video, but it is in real life, and I don't like that. But, yeah, he's just like going up to a regular, white picket fence house, and just kind of dinging the doorbell, and I don't... What? I don't know. This book had a really cool premise that was kind of familiar with things like Frankenstein's dog from the Most Wanted era of Goosebumps and whatnot. Essentially, there's a boy and a girl who are brother and sister. They've lived with their grandmother named Granny V, or nicknamed Granny V, pretty much their entire life. They don't really go too much in depth about their parents, whether they died or whether they just kind of left them up for adoption with the grandmother, or whether they were drug addicts or anything like that. You don't know. And Granny V is a very sweet woman. I really like her, probably the best character in the entire book. The brother and sister, Abby and Peter, I like them okay. They are what they are. Typical Goosebumps characters. Typical brother and sister type thing where they bicker and banter, all the time throughout the book. They also love water guns, which is kind of cool. And there's a really great scene in this book involving a water gun. And I love that scene. I really enjoyed most of the story. Of course, with the Horrorland books, your actual main story, Who's Your Mummy, is about 100 pages. Roughly, this one's only about 90 pages, and then you go to the Horrorland section, which is tied in with the little last 40 pages or so of the previous books in the series, and they tell an overarching story about Horrorland, the big amusement park that Goosebumps has always kind of had, and people love to death, and I love to death too. This is one of the better sections of Horrorland so far, in my opinion. It wasn't great, but it was good. It was on the better side, the more positive side, compared to the last couple of books from what I remember. Mainly the last one. I don't remember what the last book was, but it was better than that one, from what I remember off the top of my head. But I really liked the book for the most part. It ain't perfect. There are some things... I saw people in my previous review for The Mummy Walks commenting and saying they left off some points for their thoughts towards this book because of some of the things chosen to do in the finale of the main story, the first 100 pages of this book. And I agree with them. I'm not a really big fan at one certain point of the kind of twists they started doing towards the end of this story. I thought they were kind of bad. Very much Goosebumps in its essence, but not good Goosebumps. Like kind of some of the cheesier TV episodes from the TV adaptations from the 90s. But even so, I really enjoyed the book for the most part. Basically, the brother and sister Abby and Peter are being sent off to their Uncle Jonathan's house because their grandmother, Granny V, is apparently coming ill. She's getting kind of sick. They don't really kind of go too much into that, but they kind of imply that she might die from this. And that's kind of weird to see that in a Goosebumps book, just straight up talking about a grandparent that might die. You don't see that very often, much less do you see grandparents mentioned very often as a character or otherwise, or even gently mentioned in a Goosebumps book. So I thought that was kind of cool. A little bit different, still formulaic, but still kind of cool. And Granny V is a great character. I liked her. She'd be good for a TV adaptation of this, if they ever did it. But they go off to live with their Uncle Jonathan, and he lives in an old-timey village. And I don't think he had like a castle for a house or anything like in Frankenstein's dog. I don't think it was anything like that. I think he just kind of had like a bigger house, and he has like kind of an interest in ancient Egypt type stuff. It's not in Egypt, so it's not like a lot of the earlier mummy books from the old 90s series, from back in the classical Goosebumps days. It's kind of just him having kind of an interest in mummy stuff. One of the first people they meet in the village before their Uncle Jonathan comes to pick them up from the train station is a lady who kind of talks about hearing these moans and groanings outside of the house when she went, nearby the actual house. At nighttime, she hears these things. It kind of floats over the city a little bit. And it really bothers her. She kind of wants to keep the kids and protect them. And this character kind of sucks. She's kind of your typical warning sign character, kind of like Crazy Ralph from Friday the 13th. The guy that's like, they have a death curse, that guy. He's fun. She's not. She is a little obnoxious. I don't really like what's done with her character in the book. Not really a whole lot, but it's worth mentioning she's more valuable to the story than I thought she would be, and I don't really like what they do with her. But even trespassers that come onto the property of Uncle Jonathan's house, they get attacked by bats. And that's kind of bizarre. Like, why are bats so involved in this story about mummies? And I thought I knew where it was going as a story. I thought it was going to be some kind of weird monster crossover, big reveal type thing, like at the end of what's that one? Zombie Halloween from the Most Wanted series. I thought it'd be kind of an ending very similar to that. And it wasn't. I was kind of surprised. So, I guessed and I got it wrong for once in Goosebumps. It happens. But the book itself I was enjoying. I thought it had a little bit of interest and intrigue to it. I wanted to see what happened, And I recommend it on that basis. If you're a Mummy fan, this is not the biggest, most valuable book for you. It's kind of like I said in the earlier part of my video, it's a situation where the mummies aren't focused on so much. And when they are, it's kind of cool. There are some spooky moments in this book. I do think there's some really particularly gross stuff in this book that's going to bother people, I think. If you have a kind of a queasier stomach, if you don't really do well with gross, there are some moments in here that are going to get to you. And I thought it was a really cool way that they played up this grosser aspect to the book. So I enjoyed a lot of the book. I really did. I think the actual ending of that first 100-page story, or 90-page story, whatever, the Who's Your Mummy story, which is an awful title, by the way, but it's very 1950s-esque in a lot of ways, so it kind of works because Goosebumps is based on that kind of stuff. The main story of this book's ending, I don't like at all. I think it kind of sucks. Very much like The Mummy Walks, the previous book from Series 2000. It's just a really bad, not very climactic, very satisfying ending, and that's very common with a lot of Goosebumps things, but mainly particularly with the Mummy books. They just don't always have. Ever since the first book. I mean, the first book had a good ending, the rest have not, so far, from my experience. So it's been kind of wish-washy, And I'm hoping Dummy Meets the Mummy will break that cycle from the Slappy World series. The next book I'm going to start tonight reading it, because I'm really stoked it's the weekend. By the way, happy Friday / Saturday morning, whenever you watch this. Yeah, Who's Your Mummy? I don't really have much more to say about this. When we talk about the HorrorLand series, or the section of the book, the 40 pages or so that are dedicated to the HorrorLand storyline, basically the main character of this, Abby, goes by herself. Peter doesn't come with her because he doesn't want to. Abby goes to HorrorLand by herself, no parents, no nothing, as a special guest, which they've invited all these other characters like Carly Beth and her best friend Sabrina. Billy and Sheena from the Deep Trouble books are in these, HorrorLand collection story things. And Billy and Sheena and all these folks are having some weird things they've had to deal with since the beginning of the HorrorLand books when we've read those sections of those books. They're kind of having friends go missing. Sheena, Billy's sister, has turned invisible and vanished and stuff. Carly Beth and Sabrina are kind of freaking out. There's all kinds of stuff going on. There's other kids that are floating out there, and they've all had this one interesting thing that's happened. They've come across a mascot horror, which are what the HorrorLand, mascots are called. They came across one, in case anybody hasn't read this book that happens to be watching this video, and one of the horrors named Byron is kind of trying to get them to listen to him and kind of work with him on trying to get out of the park, possibly. He thinks they're all in danger, he's trying to warn them. And at one point, in the very beginning of the story, for the HorrorLand section of this, 40 pages at the end of this book, the main character, Abby, who goes to HorrorLand by herself, encounters Byron, but right before that she encounters another kid named Michael, who is nicknamed Monster. And apparently he's in the next book. The next book's called, Who's Your or My Friends Call Me Monster. And I thought that was a little weird having him already brought into it before he's actually introduced in the next book. So it was a little weird, a little cool. But Michael is okay, Abby's okay, I like both of them. Them getting involved with the other kids and meeting them, and also meeting Byron at one point was kind of interesting. I'm not going to spoil the whole HorrorLand section for you, but I thought, like I said, this was one of the better HorrorLand sections, the 40 pages that are dedicated to that. It's a lot better here than it has been for a while now, so I'm kind of thankful for that. I like that you do get a recap on the last couple of books of what's been happening so far so I don't forget, because I've been spacing these out a lot. I think they're much better, and I would recommend this now. If you're going to read the HorrorLand series at all, read them straight through. Don't put books in between each books, just read them straight through so you can get to the HorrorLand section, so the last 40 pages of each of these books in the series, so you can actually kind of keep up and be more engaged, I would say, with the story. But still, you don't have to. You get the recap, but it's not as in-depth as I'd like. It's like a half a page of information. But other than that, I don't really have anything else to nitpick about the book. I just don't like the ending of the main 90-page story you start this book with. The HorrorLand section's fine. Most of the main story is fine. It's actually very enjoyable for the most part. I did notice in the HorrorLand section, they weren't calling cell phones cell phones. They kept calling them mobiles, which I knew was a UK thing. I knew that was an English thing. And I was like, why are they doing that? And then I looked on the back of my book, and it only has the UK price right there. And I was like, why? What happened? So I guess I bought a UK book at some point. I don't know how that's even possible. I'm pretty sure I bought this in my local Barnes & Noble, but I could be wrong. I don't remember when I got it. I think I did a video with the book haul thing about it. Probably got it from like Thrift Books or something. I don't know. But somebody gave it to me, and it was from the UK apparently, so I don't understand what happened. But apparently I have a UK copy of Who's Your Mummy, but I think I have an American copy somewhere around here too in a books, box set type thing. But yeah, mobiles. Why do you guys call them that in the UK? I don't get it. I guess because it's a mobile device? I don't know. But why was that changed for either country? I guess it's just a slang thing. I don't know. But anyway, when it comes to... I'm sorry for my rambling. I have to, because I don't get to talk to you guys very often. I'm so busy doing other things in my life and making other videos on other channels. When I talk to you guys, I talk about everything. So forgive me. When it comes to Goosebumps HorrorLand number 6, Who's Your Mummy by R.L. Stine, it's not great, it's not perfect, it's not one of the best of the Mummy series. It's more of the positive side, but definitely not even close to being the best. I would probably give it about a 3 out of 5 stars if I had to rate it, because it is good, it is fine, it's enjoyable, it's not perfect, and that's kind of the shame with this. But it's on the good side. It's a positive 3 out of 5 stars. So that's nice. That's something welcoming, because I've been reading a lot of bad Goosebumps books lately, or at least really great ones with a bad ending, like with The Mummy Walks, the previous book I reviewed, which was really good, and then the ending just kind of fell flat. But this story is mostly consistent. It's very silly, very fun. Like I said, there's some really cool scenes in here, some really gross scenes that just really made the book even better than what they could have been. Enjoyable. Really enjoyable. I recommend it if you haven't read it before. But yeah, it is what it is. What did you guys think about Who's Your Mummy? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Put your thoughts in comments down below, guys. I would love to hear what you have to say about this wild, weird little book. Is this your favorite Mummy book out of the Goosebumps Mummy books that exist? There's like a ton of them. There's like 7 of these things. But let me know down below. I'd love to hear everything you have to say about this book and your adventure here, the HorrorLand series as a total, the HorrorLand tie-in stories. I'd love to hear everything you have to say about all of it, because it's interesting and it's weird and wild. But anyway, what are your thoughts? Put all that down below. Thank you for watching, guys. May the Lord Jesus Christ bless you guys today. Have a happy weekend, and goodbye.